All right, I will now call this meeting to order for the City of Walton, May 9th, here at the Walton Senior Center. If everyone please stand for the invocation and pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day on this earth. Lord, we thank you for being blessed to live in such a wonderful community. Lord, we ask that you guide us as public servants and allow us to make the best decisions for our city and the people we represent. In your Son's name, I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Cindy, if I please could get a roll call.
Rose Beach. Here. Amy Long. Here. Terry Courtney. Here. Sherry Snowden. Dan Martin.
Here.
Matt Brown.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Few quick announcements for everyone. May 29th, City Hall will be closed in honor of Memorial Day. May 29th, there will also be a Memorial Day celebration held here at the Senior Center, starting at 11 a.m. June 6th, there will be a caucus meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall. June 13th, there will be an events planning meeting starting at 6:15 here in the Senior Center. And June 13th as well, there will be a council meeting here at the Senior Center at 7 p.m. And June 19th, City Hall will be closed in honor of Juneteenth. And if I could please get an approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Miss Cindy, could I get a vote on that?
Rose Beach. Yes. Amy Long. Yes. Terry Courtney. Yes. Dan Martin.
Yes.
Okay. And if I could I please get an approval of the previous minutes for April 4th caucus meeting and the April 11th council meeting? In the past, council has motioned to combine that vote. You may do so by motion if you would like.
Motion to combine to approve.
Second. Rose Beach. Yes. Amy Long. Yes. Terry Courtney.
Yes.
Dan Martin.
Yes.
Okay. Citizens' comments, we'll move on to with the Sheriff's Department. Major Bill Mark, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good to be with you all tonight. Council's got a copy of my activity report from the Sheriff's Department that outlines law enforcement activities for the City of Walton for the month of April. There were a total of 968 law enforcement events in the city. Relatively quiet and nearly crime-free month for April. There was no burglaries, no thefts, and only one criminal mischief report, which was a road rage between two employees at the Dollar General Store Distribution Center. So, pretty good month. Some of the other activities for the month was there was 8 911 hang-ups. Deputies responded to 19 alarms. There was 6 attempts to locate, 5 animal complaints, only 19 auto accidents. Also an excellent month for you all. Deputies did 26 business checks, attempted 48 criminal or civil summonses. handled 6 domestics, 4 reports of intoxicated persons, 6 emotional crises, 4 juvenile trouble calls, handled 8 motorist assists. They responded on 2 overdoses, 8 requests for information. Deputies logged 435 spot checks, responded to 27 suspicious activity reports, logged 29 traffic complaints. Deputies conducted 78 traffic stops, handled 16 vehicle complaints. They unlocked 14 cars, 6 one-person calls. All told, they issued 23 citations and made 14 arrests. Any comments or questions that I can handle for you all?
Major, end of last week, there was a missing toddler over in North Walton Point.
Yes, sir.
And I understand they found him safely and everything, but I wasn't sure if there was any criminal element to it, or was it just wandered off and it's just one of those things, you know?
Actually, it came in reported to us as a missing person, which we handled with a very robust law enforcement response. We had 1 deputy respond to the scene, we had to take statements from the parents, get necessary basic information, and then he coordinated the search for other personnel in the area. He determined that it was I don't want to say misunderstanding, but I guess the couple, she was out of the home, he worked from home, so they hired a caretaker for the 2-year-old. The caretaker, without the parents' permission, took the child and traveled elsewhere in the city. So while the deputy was there still investigating, the caretaker whom they had hired returned home with the child.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else? Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. The fire department, Chief Joey Vest.
Good evening. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Council of the mayor has a detailed copy of my report for the year of 2023 up through the month of April. But just to give everybody a few highlights. For the year 2023, the fire department's responded to a total of 7 structure fires. 218 of our 640 total incidents we've responded to this year have been within the Walton city limits. During the month of April specifically, we have responded to 18 motor vehicle crashes and 1 overdose call. So, any questions about that portion of our report? A couple other announcements I'd like to make. One, the month of April, I recommended to the board, based on our financial situation, as far as taxes for the upcoming fiscal year. I made a recommendation that this upcoming year, our tax rate stay the same as it was last year, or this current year. The reason for that mainly is because of the increase in inflation, inflationary costs, and the downturn in the dip we've seen in the overall economy. The 2 previous years, consecutively, we was able to lower taxes on real personal property, but this year, we wanted to make sure that the mill making needs to provide the services that we've been providing, continue to do better for the citizens. So, the board opted to just keep tax rates where they are for the next year. Hopefully, the following year, things will take an upturn and we'll lower some taxes again. Okay? Lastly, I provided a handout to everyone. This is for anyone who resides in the Walton Fire District, as well as a business within our district. We have something new to our software called Community Connect. Again, it's for citizens either in reference to their residence is going to pop up information on our phones and with the run, and we will see those notes. So it's going to help us better prepare immediately upon dispatch to an incident, some special information such as maybe a special needs child, someone who is bedridden and not able to get out of a house on their own. Maybe there's some type of material exchange in a business. But this has instructions to walk people through. It is at no cost to any citizen. It's free of charge. You all have your own login, password that you all create, whatnot. So we can't just go in and willy-nilly look at people's notes. It just pops up for us if we get dispatched to that address for an emergency call. The security level, I understand, is the same security level that the banks have with online banking. So any information you put that would be very personal or confidential in nature is secure. Anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I see we put new water lines up on 25 up the road. What's that all about? I mean, what's it for? I mean, is it regulation or something or what?
Mayor, you want to field that question?
Where are you referring to on 25?
Go up towards,
By UPS, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Headed towards UPS?
yeah.
I believe that's part of Boone County's expansion through the American Rescue Plan. They were extending water lines from through Boone County's water district down. They've even partnered with us to extend a water line that the city owns through by the campground, running up that way. So I know that the county was planning. I didn't realize they were going through with it as of yet. But I know they were coming down Old Lexington and down that way. It's not a city water line project, or I'd have a little better, more in-depth information for you.
And I was aware that the county had a plan. I don't know the details over how many years, but they want all of Boone County basically to have hydrants and water available. If nothing else, for fire extinguishment, firefighting purposes. So,
Just trying to.
and I apologize, I can't give you better details about it.
There's no reason.
I believe it's all through their expansion with the American Rescue Plan, with the monies that they have. Part of their deal was the partnership for fiber optics through Kenton, Campbell, and Boone, and then the rest, I believe, was for water upgrades. If you'll get with me after the meeting, give me your number, I'll follow up with Judge Moore. I find out whatever I find out, I'll get you information. Okay?
I appreciate that, Mayor.
Yes, sir. All right. Chief, on your Community Connect, I wasn't just playing on my phone while I was sitting here. I started to, I did the QR code. I got the basic things set up. Seems fairly easy. It seems pretty easy to navigate. I didn't continue on and do the layout for my house or front door yet, but
When it comes to technology,
I can add a contact onto it for another person.
Are you gonna get all the notes?
I'm sorry,
What if there's different accounts in the household?
it's
I was
just,
already setting it up to them.
it's linked to.
You should have asked your wife.
So once one account for an address is set up,
They're usually confused.
then nobody else can create another account with that same address.
So it all comes down to who hits send first, I guess. So, yeah, that's fine. She can have it.
If someone has a business or a residence that they sell or buy,
Right.
then the new owner or occupant wants to upload their information, all they have to do is call the firehouse,
Okay.
and we can cancel that existing account once we verify if you are the new occupant or owner at that address. And then you can just go in and start fresh.
I don't think it's out to everybody though.
We just had this available May 1st, so we're gonna put it on our website. We're trying to hand out the flyers. I talked to Giovanna, and she's going to put it on the city's website. I talked to Judge Lord, they have a county newsletter, and I suspect that Walton is not going to be the only agency that has something like this available. So I was, and talked to him to see if maybe we can have something about it, put in the newsletter. So if somebody lives in a different fire district, they can at least contact their fire department and find out if something like that's available for where they live.
Any other questions for Chief? Chief? Council? Anybody?
Thank you all.
Chief, thank you. Before we, Cardinal Engineering, Matt Bogan, then we'll get on to citizens' comments, questions. See, we have some people in the audience here.
Evening, everybody. So the latest on the High Street Bridge project, last month, we were trying to find out from the state who was on their master agreement for construction inspection services, just to cover the certifications they require that we don't have. So AECom is the consultant they currently have on contract. We've been in touch with one of their project managers, and we're going to meet with them on Monday to discuss the scope of the project. I sent them a copy of the plans today, just to kind of talk about, you know, the expected schedule and just the, you know, issues with the railroad that we need to be concerned about, traffic control, all that stuff. And then they'll give us a cost proposal for their services. We also had the bid opening for the 2023 street projects. Both contracts, the total came in a little bit under budget. The low bidder on the asphalt contract was Naira Paving. The low bidder on concrete was Eaton. It's almost 122,500 on asphalt and 69,300 on concrete. So, you know, I think we're, you know, both of those contractors will be good to be going the lowest bidders on their projects. So, unless council has any issues with that, I'll get in touch with those and get the agreement signed off on. On the park property, I know there was some discussion at caucus about the joint fire and police training site. I went back and looked at the plan and kind of scaled back that parcel. It's a little over 10 acres right now, and still should leave them plenty of space for what the agencies want to do, and also preserve some of the walking trail areas that the city had planned. Also, our proposed site access will be off Powell Lane to the east, and won't have any direct access through the park. And Mayor Brown and I talked about seeking out grant money for the motorized path that goes around the lake, so I'm getting documents and estimates together on that. And then on the stormwater program, we had another complaint about drainage issues on a couple of properties on Mashburn Drive. There is an existing storm sewer that goes through the backyard with inlets spaced every so far. A couple of the properties in the middle, there's a bit of a low point, it's not draining out. So I got a quote from United Plumbing, who's done the last couple of projects for us on Brookwood and Charney Valley. $8,650 to install a new inlet box in between the two existing ones, and then just do some grading improvements just to make sure water goes where we want it to. Previously, we've been bound by the $30,000 cap on similar projects before we have to bid it out. Recently, that just increased to 40,000. So with this project, we're at a total of about 35,000 for the current fiscal year. So we're still within acceptable limits. Also, just want to give everybody a heads up as part of the stormwater mapping requirement that the state has on us. Cardinal survey crews will be around town, probably starting next week, just getting information on the existing sewers. So, most of that would be getting the stuff around the streets, but they may be wandering around back into yards or other private properties to find the outlets, the head walls when things come out, and getting information on that. So, we want to be worried or concerned if they see our guys out and about. So, are there any questions from council?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you already have the plans for the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Because it would be a really good place to train for trains.
Yeah.
Or people who like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send you a copy more.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went out there and met with them. So there is a established drainage easement for the coming off of Main Street. Yeah, and really there's just kind of that wet area down in the low point that's gradually creeping up into the yards. So yeah, it will just need some. First off, I got to figure out exactly where the boundaries of that easement are. I might have our crew go out and put down some stakes just to show where that is, and then probably need some grading improvements to push that drainage swale back towards the edge of Mary Grove's extension versus where it is now. So yeah, it's in the works. Just gotten to the point where I can get into the contractor on it. All right. Thank you, everybody.
On it. Okay, I see we have some citizens here. If anyone would like to speak, you all can have, I'm loud enough for everybody. I don't know. Terry, you got anything else to start? Sir? You wouldn't mind, tell us your name and what, go from there. What's your
My
question?
name is Dwight Johnson. I live on Church Street, right across from the park, proposal of the park. My concern is that with the addition of the police training facility and the fire training facility, that it's going to take away from the serenity of the park. I think the man said already that some of the walking trails are going to be eliminated because of the police and fire training facility. And some of my neighbors and me think that this facility shouldn't be put in the middle of Walton, that there's some place else that it should be, that it should be put in. Also, we have a flooding problem that hasn't been addressed right across from the entrance to the lake.
In regards to the flooding problem, now, when is the flooding occurring? I believe we have talked about this, and I know the city did. I think we put in, Matt, we put in, what, roughly 36-inch pipe, I believe, running through there. Is that something with the head boxes are flooding, or is it mainly when we
coming
get?
From across the street, there's a ditch there that needs to be cleaned out.
Okay.
And every time it rains, that ditch overflows.
Is it only when it rains like 2 inches in an hour, or is it continual?
A hard rain.
Real hard rain? Okay, we've got my public operations guy here and Matt here. We'll take a look at that as well. In relation to the fire and police training facility, Dwight, I'll bite on that. Honestly, I think right now we're still in a what you call an infancy phase. This is only something that has been proposed. The fire training facility, as it stands, has already been passed for a different location, which would be pretty much on the roadside frontage, relatively close to your house. And I understand. I understand the thoughts that maybe this, at least in my personal opinion, I don't speak for council, and ultimately they're going to have the final say on it. Ultimately, it has been suggested, it has been sought after for years and years and years, at least my time as mayor, with the direct need for a police training facility. Chief Vest and I go to lunch usually once every couple of months. We try to get together and discuss things within the city. Chief, had brought up the idea of, this was even before Dr. Owens so graciously donated this land to us. Chief had brought up the need for a fire training facility because of the difficulties to go to Hebron with overtime staffing. Chief could clear up that a little bit more as far as what that is cost to the taxpayers yearly, as far as overtime fees if he were to have to send everybody to Hebron, just in sheer overtime alone. But sitting through these Kenton County Mayor's Group meetings, the difficulty is, one, it's extremely hard for any police agency, whether it's the sheriff's department or, Fort Wright, Park Hills, whomever, Walton if we had one. It's extremely difficult for them to get new hires into the academy at Eastern Kentucky. And it's even harder for them to get people down there for basic continuing education training. So the need was there. And I honestly think it's a small portion. And I've even seen, I've tried to shy away from this from Facebook comments. I'm on this new enlightened path where I'm not trying my best anyway, not to chime back at every comment I see, but I did see one comment, and it wasn't from you, sir. I've read your post, and it was very respectful. I did see one comment from somebody saying that, the city should show some respect, and that one honestly, that one really hurt me. I took it on the chin. Not much ever gets to me, but I consider Dr. Owens a dear friend. We certainly came from different backgrounds. I'm certainly never getting into Harvard or Yale. The two of us had no business really being in a room. We were kind of like the odd couple, but we got along really well. His passing, left a hole in my heart. So to think I would never do something that I didn't think that I would have the full support of Dr. Owens on, or even propose it. Dr. Owens was alive when we started with the fire training facility discussions, and he was in support of that. Before I even went too far into discussing with the Police Chiefs Association, I contacted his son, Chris, who's, I guess, now the de facto spokesperson for the family. I do have the support of the Owens family in this venture. I think what we've tried to do, and I wouldn't propose it otherwise. I would never want to dishonor my friend's legacy. And if I thought in any way that he wouldn't support this, it would have never even been brought up. But I think, and I'll be happy to show you what Matt has drawn up with the plans. Actually, I'll just give them to you here. Matt Bogan was kind enough. I told him I couldn't do computers. So I asked him to print me out about 3 or 4 of these. And I told him I'd draw on them with crowns. And he was so very kind to leave me an 8-pack of crayons. Because he's low-key funny. But I got a good laugh out of it. So the initial plan was about here. And that was more of a plat line because this property used to be separate. So now, over here is roughly the pre-approved fire training facility that was pre-approved by council. In this Church Street, Percival County. Now, that took away a lot of road frontage. This is tucked back into the woods. And my biggest fear in my discussions with council, like I said, this is all infancy. It was not, we're not voting on this tonight. We're not, I haven't even gotten, a final okay if the Police Chiefs Association even wants to move forward. This is just, has turned in kind of a joint adventure. Chief Vest could probably comment. Major Mark has somebody that has been appointed to the committee, so imagine Major Mark's not going to speak on this. As the Sheriff's Department already has somebody involved in it. But the reason for putting them back here is it saves, it's a money saver for both the fire department and the police. Now, the only thing I hear that would really be in contention, and that's the only thing I really hear too much of, would be a potential shooting range long term. The Police Chiefs Association, I believe, it's at least been told to me that they don't even believe that they would have a shooting range for close to 10 years. And I think that they would like to have an indoor shooting range. Now, I did see your concerns about, where was it, Cincinnati, I forget the city's name, Lincoln Heights had to deal with the outdoor shooting range tucked in the middle of the suburban area. Well, I can tell you, I've been working on this place called Factory 52. It's an old car factory in Norwood. It's heavily popular, and the Norwood Police Department has an indoor fire or indoor shooting range. I think that would be their ultimate goal, and I don't think that is their highest level of importance. What they really want is a place to do driver's training, to have a classroom, and for the fire department to have their classroom, which would be shared, and their burn facility, which would be some stacks. I certainly, we were happy to work with the fire department to put the fire training facility in, but I would much rather have this tucked back in a place, in a wooded area where I cannot monitor, where we cannot see at all times, than have it take up roadside frontage. That was more or less the thinking behind getting it tucked back into the woods.
They're having trouble with the fire authority in Heath. I work with a guy at Heath, and he says that sometimes the fire department has fires that has toxic fumes and still the seed in more than one case.
That's a Chief Vest question. That doesn't sound right to me, but I'm not a firefighter.
As far as Burns training facility, I can tell everybody, there's a misconception with it. This isn't some big roaring, burning fire, okay? Generally, it's what's called sludge pots. It's a very small fire, maybe a small portion of a bale of hay, something, and there is generally one burn room, the one in Burlington, Hebron area. It's up on the second floor of that concrete tower that they got, and they got one room that they can burn in. It cannot get over forgive me, I don't know the exact degree. It's like 1,100 degrees, and then it causes damage. So, you could have a trash can fire in this room, and it's gonna heat it up about to the extent of what it would heat up in one of these training facilities like we're looking at.
So there would be no chemical fires at the training facility?
No, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
NFPA regulates very, very closely, as well as the State Fire Commission, as far as how big our fires can be, or what can be burned as far as combustibles, how many fire instructors you have to have on site, all personal protective equipment has to be checked before anybody goes into the burned building when there's an active fire, which isn't really anything bigger than people's got in their burn pits at home.
This proposal fire site is right in the middle of our neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
I just think there could be a better place for it than this.
Well, and what was looked at and considered, because a lot of consideration's been given to the neighbors in the area. And as far as a little bit of smoke was generated, maybe on a foggy day or something, you know, the humidity in here, it could keep the smoke down low. And we don't want that. We wasn't looking to cause any problems for the people living in that area.
I understand that, you need a place. Have you heard anything
Well,
from
that's why we was looking at trying to build up on top of that hill, because smoke's gonna rise, and it would not be a problem for the people along Percival Road, Church Street area.
If I can-
Overlying area.
Thank you, Chief. If I can add, this is the third location that's been discussed, right, for the fire burn, right?
Yes.
And never in these conversations have I really heard the concern of the citizens, how it may impact. However, we have discussed how it could positively impact the ISO rating, which in turn helps the citizens with their insurance rates. With that said, I feel like and I'm just gonna be candid, I shoot from the hip. With the police training facility, council learned of that last week. So there's a lot of cart before the horse here when we employ our engineer to sit down and work out plans, and it's a cost to the taxpayers without the conversation first. And the mayor and I discussed that last week. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because, as the mayor states, this is in the infancy. Personally, I believe it's not even to that stage, right? Because council has not, and he has stated, council hasn't agreed to this. But I'm glad the conversation is occurring because we represent you. And so if our citizens do not want it, then we shouldn't vote for it, right? So I think this conversation is great. It should continue before the planning continues. Because you noted, Mayor, that you've discussed it with the police chiefs around the counties throughout the state. You've discussed it with our engineer. I'm sure there's been discussions, perhaps maybe, this is me assuming, with the attorney, but also with the fire chief. But the conversations really should have taken place here and here. So again, I'm glad that you're here, sir, and I'm glad this conversation's occurring.
And I'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss details, concerns, questions anybody has over us building a training facility, because, and this is not just lip service, okay? I look at it and approach it, we are public servants. We serve you, the citizens. And just like I mentioned a little while ago about the tax rates, okay? The tax rates are now lower, I do believe, lower than what they've been during my career. And my time here has been almost 30 years. So I work very hard not only to try and provide the best service to the citizens, but also come up with ways to save the taxpayers money. Because I try to be the best steward I can with your money. I'm pretty frugal with the spending and the handling of that money. That being said, you know, I looked at the park and the original idea, you know, which the resolution passed previously, was for us to build down below the road frontage right there with church and Percival Walton. Okay, well, when I found out from the mayor, hey, you know, there may be a possibility that law enforcement has a training center at home. Well, I looked at that with him, and I was like, well, if we're here, and a law enforcement facility does materialize back here, then that's gonna be more of the park. Why not tuck us in the back, away from the residents, up on the higher ground there, and the law enforcement facility and fire training facility is kind of like one campus. It gives much more area of the park to the citizens, as well as, you know, overall, is gonna save taxpayer money.
Is the fire training facility just for the Walton Fire Department, or what other fire departments doing?
It is for the Walton Fire Department. There isn't gonna be, so, your independents, whoever can come join, but we will do joint trainings. And that goes with part of the requirements for ISO scoring. And the ISO scoring is a score that the insurance companies give us as a fire department, which affects you as citizens and business owners, and it affects your all's interest rates. I believe it was year before last. We had the ISO representatives come into the fire department for the first time in history, requested that they do I call it a deep dive, look at everything. They look at our training, our personnel, our equipment, our response times, our incidents, locations or stations, the hydrants, how much water we get out of them, areas that we have no hydrants. They look at everything with fine tooth comb, and we had never had that done before. At the time, our ISO score was barely 4. And from my understanding, we was almost a class 5, okay? And after I had that done, with the changes we had already implemented, we're now a solid 3, which lowers insurance costs for everybody that's in our district. My ultimate goal is to get our ISO class down to a 2. So I looked at their findings, their recommendations, and been working on increasing our staffing, as well as a training facility, which will help tremendously. Now, 2 separate training facilities, one is not going to take up more area of the park, okay? Because they're in 2 different spots, rather than kind of in one area tucked away. But the other thing, the mayor mentioned something about the driver's training area, okay? Not only would law enforcement be able to use that driver's training area, but that can be a shared area with the fire department. They got their driver's training requirements, which I'm sure is different from ours, but, you know, a lot of driver's training requirements includes concourse. All of our firefighters every year go through a course where they have to go serpentine forward in the trucks, each truck, and then serpentine backwards, just the opposite. You know, there's the diminishing, with, I forget what they call it. Starts off wide, the further you go forward, it narrows down where the truck will barely fit in. And then they have to turn around and they have to go backwards. You know, so, big apparatus, you know, and I want to make sure that our people are trained at the very best as far as safety, as I'm sure, the sheriff's department wants to do for all of us.
My concern is with all this training and all the fire department vehicles and the police officer vehicles that are going to be down and around in that area, we might as well be living in an urban city. Our neighborhood is gone.
We're not going to be at the training facility day and night and just all the time. I can tell you about a year ago, I worked up the numbers and done a study, and for me to be able to send all of my personnel 20 hours a week, which is not enough training, okay? So it's 4 hours, 5 days a week. It was gonna cost you, the taxpayer, over $1 million in overtime costs for 1 year. Our budget just can't do it. I cannot afford to work people overtime to cover our district and take equipment out of service on top of that, while I send them to Burlington to get quality training. So that's why I've been working so hard at trying to find something in our fire district, because when they're on shift and already working, they can train, and if they get caught, then we just shut things down and they can go.
What about the place you have in Richwood? That's not sufficient?
What place?
Don't you have a firehouse in Richwood, Richwood?
Yes, sir, we got a satellite station.
Satellite station?
It is manned, with 2 to 4 people, and on each shift, available to try to get forward as much as I can. And we have 1 fire engine and 1 ambulance down there.
Yes,
And we work at the training center.
No, sir, there's not enough space there. We have no space to build any, we couldn't even put just a burn building there on that lot. It's not big enough.
I have a question. What about the noises? You're talking about training. Is this going to be sirens and
No,
engine noise?
no.
Okay, what about the
The
police
trucks
department?
would be there on site.
Okay, what
So-
about the police department? I mean, you said the driver's training. I watch cops sometimes on television. Okay, they do pit maneuvers and stuff. Is that what you're talking about? They're going to learn how to do all that kind of stuff? I mean, that seems like that's going to be a lot of noise.
Absolutely. If I could speak to that, law enforcement throughout Kentucky is mandated by state law to complete at least 40 hours of training per officer per year. Currently, all the agencies in northern Kentucky kind of feel the same pain that the chief has. There's only so much mandated training that's hosted in northern Kentucky. For instance, another deputy and I did our 40 hours of in-service training in Bowling Green last month. So we had to travel 5 hours away from home to complete our training that we had to complete by law. So that cost the department over $1,000 just in travel expenses, which is the department's money, which is tax funds, which is your money. We train a lot, but a lot of law enforcement training is not shooting, and we're doing driving training right now. We do driving training once a year. We're doing it in a parking lot at the old, what's the place on Houston Road that's out of business now? At Citibank in their parking lot. Virtually all the driving training we do is low-speed driving. It's all 20 miles an hour and less. Because most of the collisions that our personnel are involved in are low-speed collisions. So we focus on low-speed driving, and like the chief said, more agility. Because our insurance company said we were the number one culprit in the state for them having to replace bumper covers on cars. So what we focus on in driving training is to avoid the collisions that cause us the most damage, which is low speed driving. Parking, maneuvering, making U-turns, etc. It's not high speed stuff. And you talk about pit maneuvers. The sheriff's office has not, has never, and never will do pit maneuvers. To my knowledge, there's only 2 law enforcement agencies in Kentucky that are authorized to pit cars.
How many, police, units is this going to involve in the fire departments? I think you said that it would just be Walton's, but how many police departments are you thinking about for this?
It would be the Northern Kentucky Police Chiefs Association.
The Kentucky Police Chiefs Association is roughly 30 agencies with 400 officers.
I think it's important to distinguish that the fire training facility is definitely going to happen. That's going to happen because we, as a council, passed a resolution, and we saw the benefits in it to our community. Now, if chief, because that plot of land has been allotted, so if chief is willing to come back to the table and we're able to discuss where it best benefits our neighbors, then let's please do that. The other piece of that is the police training facility. That's a proposal. So that, as he stated, in its infancy, although we'll keep it at that. In its infancy, I'm sure there is an absolute need, but it's for us as citizens to determine, is that what we want in our community? And so that's where we're at. But one is a definite and one is a proposal, just so that we're all clear.
And I'm sure not only that Gabe or Mr. Duncan, council can probably put constraints on these training facilities, just like they could with any other sound barrier.
Absolutely.
They can put in, trees to deaden sound.
Well, it's in the middle of the woods, so.
Yeah, but
I mean,
or,
think trees
if
kind
the
of
police
give.
departments do want a gun range, the council could probably put it in the stipulation that it could not be an outdoor limit.
But it's not gonna be right across from, like, the White's house. The entrance of it, it's not
No.
gonna be there.
Actually, I did some trig on that. By God, Dwight, you made me do trigonometry. Your house in direct line to where that yellow box is on there, which would be the firing range, versus the American Legion, where they have a turkey shoot every Sunday when the weather's nice. You're closer to the American Legion turkey shoot range than you are to that wooded area there, believe it or not. I didn't believe it either, but I did the math. I'm not great at math, but I remember the Pythagorean theorem, and in fact, I believe I've checked it. It is closer. It's not much, but it's you are closer.
Are you familiar with Barrel Lake?
Yes, sir, I am.
They used to shoot trap at Barrel Lake on the weekend. And this sounded like it was in our living room.
I can believe it.
Barrel Lake is farther away than this facility.
But Barrel Lake is also wide open. There's not woods, and like I said, I think ultimately, in my discussions with the Police Chiefs Association, and it's not even been the full association. This has been the president of the Police Chiefs Association, 2 vice presidents, and 1 representative from Boone County Sheriff's Department. I think they would absolutely love to have an indoor firing range. And more so, I think what they would rather have above any of it would be a tactical barn, which my understanding with a tactical barn is there is no live fire. It is, you've probably seen it on hyper dramatizations of the SEALs where they're planning out a raid on somebody, and you've got the guys standing up on an observation post up above, and then you've got movable walls and doorways and things like that, where the soldiers, where the police make their maneuvers below, and the people above do the grading on how well they performed in a certain situation. I think they would much rather have something like that. And as I said previously, in my understanding, I don't think even with an outdoor firing range, and I think they're completely, I think they would be fine with whatever stipulations council put on them. In my understanding and my discussions that I've had to date, they don't even envision this happening as far as a shooting range for 5 years or 5 to 10 years, if it happens at all. And I think they would much rather have an indoor facility. It's much easier for an outdoor facility because cost-wise, but an indoor facility is completely doable. There's some things that come along with that. But the fact of the matter is with this, not only does it add some shared cost with the fire department and saves our local fire district some money, I believe, actually, I believe we will get significant grant funding for this park. I believe it will allow the city to have an overall better park experience there. I believe that wooded area is going to be a problem if it's just left to trails. I know that it's not, we haven't had any problems there as of yet, knock on wood, but it's not also not been opened as a park. We've had situations at our main park. So that section of wood line concerns me, one, as a mayor, but it concerns me as a citizen of Walton. And I'm not a big ifs and buts guy. Anytime somebody gets the ifs and buts on me, I always say, if ifs and buts, candy nuts, be Christmas all year long. But, so I don't like to deal with hypotheticals a lot, but I've taken an exception to this with that. And I would like to see more road frontage. I do want the fire department to have a training facility, and if the police training facility happens along with it, then yes, I will absolutely be ecstatic. I think this is huge for Northern Kentucky. This is not just a Walton thing. Yes, it will bring some more traffic to that road. Most of them will probably be coming down 536 way, so who's to say they're not going to come through Percival Road back to Powell anyway. I don't think, that people are just going to be running up and down the streets, and, let's hope Boone County's running at least over 25 miles an hour when they do. That saves some bumpers, I kid. I got a kick out of that thing. I think it's going to do wonderful things for Walton as a whole, and I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that this is not going to affect the people of Church Street and Percival to an extent that it's unbearable.
Can you explain the benefits to the Walton people? Because we've discussed this briefly last week for the first time. Part of the benefits were that if we were going to move towards a police force eventually, that we'd have our own training facility, but we're not there, right? And as the mayor points out, this is big for Northern Kentucky, but I think the people in the room want to know how it impacts them and what positives are there besides police presence. Because honestly, when we went to divvy up 4 acres of property for the fire department, you guys are great stewards of the community. You're appreciated, Chief, and I know that you do look for cost savings at every angle. But part of that sell was that we were going to have a presence there, right? So because we already have vandalism at the main park, with the fire department, it would meet their need. It would potentially help us in the fact that it could reduce vandalism because we have a presence like the fire department. And that's the same selling point for the police facility. But what beyond that? Because it's really not revenue generating for the people. The police unions, those who belong to the police union that would participate there, there's no financial forward to the city or the taxpayers. So, because as you note that this would be huge for Northern Kentucky, I can understand that, but how is it huge for Walton, if you'd share with us?
Well, in my opinion, and no, you're right to some degree. There's also no written lease agreement. There's not a lease agreement for with the fire department either. So honestly, we don't know what the finer details are as far as any revenue stream. In my mind, I believe that if Walton were to hopefully one day, as has been discussed, we are not in a position, in the immediate future to have a police department, but I believe that we're going to, head that way probably sometime in the next 10 years. Boone County does a wonderful job for us, and police departments are expensive, but, so I do believe there's additional benefit to that. I believe that anybody who owns a business in town would see some additional money in their pocket. Gas station, a coffee shop.
The donut shop.
The donut shop.
Sorry, maybe.
That's why I said coffee. Whether it's McDonald's, Kohl's, some of these guys, not everybody,
The citizens. That's
the citizens, if the citizens' businesses are thriving, honestly, I think one of the things that people always talk about, that, you know, you always see it, whether it's spelled correctly or not, you always see sit-down restaurant. You know, whether it's an SET restaurant or an SIT restaurant, you always see it. People want things like that. I honestly believe having something like that, this is something that they put a big brown sign, and no, not Gabe Brown. They put a brown sign on the interstate heading towards Walton that says Regional Police Training Facility. This exit. That is something that is a business magnet. So I do honestly believe that having a training facility here will help ultimately with the goal. It does not put any additional houses.
That brown sign on the exit that backs up on down 75.
You all watch what you wish for. That's a whole nother can of worms.
Okay. But it's the same traffic.
That's coming.
I mean, it's more traffic, right?
Well,
we would know that, right?
Okay, well,
'Cause
fair enough.
The brown sign.
What are we talking about here? Yes,
We're talking about the benefits
well,
to
we're-
citizens. That's not the brown sign, but we want to know how it benefits the citizens. It's your selling point. I'm just asking.
I am
questions.
trying to tell you.
Okay, thank you. You gave me a brown sign.
A brown sign means a lot, as far as, you know, it's a tourism, and it's tourism for a different reason. It's not necessarily tourism as, you know, Joanne and Dale are going to come drive the RV down here and take pictures of the police training facility, but it's businesses that are going to benefit from this. Overall, I do believe that having a training facility here is going to attract restaurants. I believe it's going to bring money into the city, and I believe, honestly, besides saving taxpayers money, which is the biggest sticking point, I do believe that it's going to attract businesses. It's going to put money in our business owners' pockets. And I believe it's going to ensure that
A lot of our
we have a
citizens-
thriving community here.
But a lot of our citizens are not business owners. Very few are. So again, I'm just asking you how it benefits the citizens.
If a
Besides,
business shuts down in this town, does it not affect those who are not business owners? What happens if Bailey Janes or families, not saying they're going to, I'm not picking on either one of them, they're just close by. But if one of those businesses shut down, do the people who are not business owners, who patronize those businesses, are they not affected? Now you've got to find a new place to go get a cup of coffee and a donut, or a new place to go get one of the world's most delicious meat omelets. Chief? No, you're fine.
I can just add one thing, the increased presence, not only of firefighters, but of law enforcement officers. It's gonna benefit the community and the citizens. Mr. Martin asked about the missing poplar. But I don't care what law enforcement agency those folks work at, I will guarantee you that they was their training facility, when that call come out, they would stop training and every one of them would participate to help locate that child. Same with the fire department. We have something called mutual aid agreements with all the surrounding departments in Northern Kentucky. So, if they're here going to join training with us, so if it's business or resident, or, you know, catches fire, a bad car accident, anything, those folks are gonna be here responding from our area to assist us anytime assistance is needed. And so, if there is indirect ways that it can benefit the citizens, as well as direct ways, as far as the money stations, things like that. So, that would be one thing I would point out and say as far as that goes, benefit citizens. The other thing I just want to say before I sit down is myself, I am truly, truly proud to be involved in these discussions and this idea. And I hope that everybody living in the city, in the county, realizes how fortunate they are, because you're talking about the police association, the city, and the fire department, 3 separate entities coming together and working and trying to figure out a plan, not only to improve public services, but save money while doing it. And that is a rarity.
It absolutely is a rarity.
Thank you.
Continuing on with citizen comments, if it's all right with everyone, does anyone else have any comments about the Owens property and the training facility that hasn't already been said? Gina, yeah, I know you're here for the same reason. You got? Okay. Well, we won't continue on with the same reasons. I understand everyone's concerns, and we're not anywhere close to a vote. We're not. You know, that's not even on the agenda for tonight. We're a long way out from that. So I appreciate everyone's, being here to find out what's going on. And my number is listed on our city's website for anybody that does not have it. Dwight, I've given you mine. You're more than welcome to call me, contact me at any time. I will be happy to take anybody down there and show you around the park, show you what I've got going on, or what I'm thinking about, and we can look at it ourselves. And maybe I'll try to, at best, maybe I can, put your mind at ease here. I'm not a salesman, as you can hear. I'm not good at it for, if I could talk real well, who knows what I could get done. But we've spent over an hour on something that's not even on the agenda for the evening. Do we have any comments for any other concerns?
Yeah, when can we have a nice sit-down restaurant?
Get out of here. I love it. I'm working it. Well, we had the human resources vice president for Cracker Barrel on council for somewhere around 4 years, and he said a Cracker Barrel never happened. But Dry Ridge and Florence are very close by. I am working on sit-down restaurants. I've never stopped working on them. They told us that we didn't have enough rooftops. We've got more rooftops.
Who's this?
Restaurateurs. Restaurateurs, Restaurant Association.
Okay.
It even went to the point where after we got rooftops, they told me, well, we can't build it. We're not building right now. We're not even building anywhere in populated places because.
And does it have to do with anything else?
Yeah, they couldn't. Well, I'm not getting into that one either. I got what you. I'm a little slow. It was told to me that they couldn't get enough staffing because people that were 18 couldn't pick up a bottle of beer from a bar and walk it to a table, so they lost out on an entire demographic. I got a law written and passed in Frankfurt to where someone that's 18 years and a day can't bartend in the state of Kentucky, but they can serve tables now. I worked with John Schickel to write that law. It took a year, one legislative session, and didn't pass. The next year, Ed Massey, who's no longer with the LRC, took it up. It passed through the Senate and the House, and Governor Beshear signed it into law last year. So I've written a law. We've gotten more rooftops. I'm waiting for the restaurants. And I continue to call. I do make calls in my infinite extra time. I promise you on that. It's not something, it's not something we don't realize, and we are hopeful for. I think about restaurants. Restaurants and splash pads, that's all I ever think about.
Are we getting splash pads?
Too early to tell. Talk to me in July. All right.
We had another citizen join us here.
Yes, we did have another citizen join us, but I'm going to go to those. Chris, do you have anything? Tootie, you got anything? Wayne?
No, sir.
Gentlemen, just joined? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the first item of business for the evening. We have ordinance 2023-04, it's a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Walton, Kentucky granting a competitive, non-exclusive franchise to Owen Electric Cooperative for erection, laying, operation, and maintenance of electric transmission and distribution facilities and appurtenant equipment in, along, and across the public ways, roads, streets, alleys, and other public places in the City of Walton, Kentucky for furnishing and selling electricity by means of said facilities, and authorizing and directing the mayor, city clerk, and the attorney to negotiate and execute an appropriate franchise agreement to carry out the terms of this ordinance. Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and the audience. This is thanks to our 1892 Kentucky State Constitution, which states, along with the statutes that were adopted thereafter, that any utility who wants to operate in the city streets, within the city, have to have a franchise to do that. Now, Owen Electric has a franchise for electric for a part of the city, and I'm going to talk about the other two ordinances that follow 05 and 06 because they're the same thing, just different names. Duke Energy has an electric franchise for the rest of the city that Owen doesn't have, and Duke Energy has a gas franchise, all emanating from the same constitutional requirements. And those franchises are either expired or expiring. So late last year, we adopted some ordinances to create the franchise again, as the Constitution requires. We placed those out for bid, and Owen Electric, Duke for electric and Duke for gas submitted bids to keep the franchises in the areas that they've had all these years. And all this does is complies with the Constitution and the statutes. And I expect if you, well, I'm going to encourage you to adopt these ordinances so we can go to the next step and put the franchise agreements in place. So that's the first reading, or the second reading of ordinance 2023-04, so it'd be appropriate to consider that for adoption.
Motion to approve.
Mike, before we move on to a vote on that, last month's meeting, did we not combine?
You can do that if you want to. It'd be best actually to vote on them separately, though.
Okay.
At this point.
Oh, yeah,
Because
it's
you're
a second
adopting,
reading.
because you're adopting
Okay,
the
got it.
ordinance.
So we have a first, Rose second. All right, Cindy, can I get a vote, please?
Rose Beach.
Yes.
Amy Long. Terry Courtney. Dan Martin.
Yes.
Okay, and as we've indicated, ordinance 2023-05 is the same thing for the franchise area for Duke Energy for electric, and I would have no further summary for that, incorporate what I said already. So it'd be appropriate for you to adopt this ordinance.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Rose Beach.
Yes.
Amy Long.
Yes.
Terry Courtney. Dan Martin.
Yes.
And ordinance 2023-06, the title's all the same, except instead of for electric, it's for gas. Duke Energy is the only gas provider in the city. They currently have the franchise, and they want to keep it. So again, it would be appropriate to adopt this ordinance.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Rose.
Yes.
Amy. Terry. Dan.
Yes.
Thank you. Can we go to the resolution?
Oh, I was about to ask you what number. All right, next we have Resolution 2023-05. Resolution of the City of Walton, Kentucky, requesting our legislators to file, discuss, support, and pass legislation during the next session of the General Assembly, which would reform and provide exemptions for the requirements of certificates of need for healthcare providers. I will read this. Whereas Kentucky statutes, which have established the requirement for certificates of need, do not encourage free market principles in the healthcare industry, they're not supporting choice on the premise of competition and capitalism as opposed to not monopolies, and therefore result in a lack of diversity in healthcare providers, which deprive the citizens of our city with adequate choices in level of care at affordable prices. And whereas it has been the collective experience of the members of this body that certificates of need create unnecessary hurdles for healthcare-oriented businesses to establish themselves in our city and surrounding communities. And whereas during the 2023 legislative session, members of the General Assembly had proposed bills in both chambers, which did not pass, to reform statutes relating to certificates of need for healthcare providers, which proposals would have encouraged competition and capitalism as opposed to monopolies, thereby enhancing our citizens' choice in level of health care at affordable prices. And whereas the city of Walton finds that an exemption from obtaining certificate of need for health services such as was proposed would benefit the citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky and the residents of the city of Walton. And whereas the city has determined that it is in the best interest of the city of Walton to adopt this resolution supporting the passage of such an exemption for certificates of need by the Kentucky legislature, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and city council of the city of Walton that the city of Walton supports and urges our state legislators to file, discuss, support, and pass legislation during the next session which would reform and provide exemptions for the requirements of certificates of need for healthcare providers. Okay, and I would need a motion and a second.
Can you share what we learned about that, just so the audience understands? Please.
Yep. So, for a hospital, a doctor's office, anything in general, to be able to buy an MRI machine, they have to get a certificate of need. That's one thing. For a hospital or a specialty group to come into an area in Kentucky, they have to get a certificate of need. Basically, it goes before a committee in Frankfurt, either gets passed or doesn't. This was something that was done years ago throughout not only Kentucky, but many states. Almost, there's very few states that still have certificate of need requirements. But the thought was that it wasn't going to drive up by having a certificate of need and having to have approval. Somebody just couldn't go out and buy a frivolous machine to jack up your health care rates. What it has allowed and what we have seen with it and the reasoning behind it has been, you've seen throughout places in the state where you only have one healthcare provider. Whereas since St. Elizabeth had bought St. Luke's years ago, and nothing against St. Elizabeth, they provide good health care. Since that has happened, we've pretty much only seen St. Elizabeth in the northern Kentucky region. All of the family physicians that used to be local, the whole time I grew up, and I think a lot of people probably here, Dr. Waller's office was not a St. Elizabeth's deal. And once again, nothing against St. Elizabeth. But every family physician in northern Kentucky has either folded into St. Elizabeth's Physicians Group, or they don't have access to the hospitals for surgeries or any of that. You saw probably the most recent case that's really affected northern Kentucky has been the Christ Hospital deal that would have gone in at the old drawbridge off of Buttermilk. St. Elizabeth, it was the certificate of need was granted. St. Elizabeth sued and won in court. The thought was that at least their argument was that they would be, they take the Medicare and Medicaid patients, so places would come in and provide specialty and basically undercut them out of that, while they would be taking on treatment for patients that couldn't pay or were government funded at a set rate. I think the thinking and the reasoning, this was brought to us by Representative Marianne Proctor, who took this up last year in the legislative session. Her thought was, that this certificate of need is antiquated and outdated. I don't believe that this is going to ultimately just be, hey, anybody's going to come in. There will be, if it passes at all in Frankfurt, there will be some serious give and take, and I imagine at least some sort of agreement or restrictions on it. But the thought overall is that this will provide more services. It'd be similar if anyone ever goes to Louisville or Lexington, you go downtown, particularly Louisville, you can't go 3 blocks downtown Louisville without running into a different hospital. Here, you've got one. If you want level 1 trauma, you have to go across the river to UC. You have to go to Christ. You have to go, UC Healthcare is the only level 1 trauma center. We have a helicopter here for UC Health that flies people there. So while I do believe St. E provides good services, and I believe we can have better, and I firmly believe that competition is good. Competition, lower prices. Competition provides for better care, or just better services in general, whether it's healthcare or whether it's, painting walls. You're going to get better results. So that's the thought behind it. Several other cities have taken up similar resolutions, although I do believe ours is a pretty good one. So that's where we are on that, and I'm sure Marianne Proctor would be more than happy to speak on it. She had came and spoken to our council last month. So
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's hard to understand all the legal jargon, but I appreciate you explaining that to all of us. I'll make a motion.
Second?
Rose,
Yes.
Amy, Terry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Okay. So with that is, I believe, the end of our business portion of the evening. I'll start with council comments. Oh, Bobby. I know you showed up to give up. Do you have updates? I'm sorry. I'm like,
Bobby has a lot of updates.
he does have a lot of updates. Bobby, would you care to give your updates? I apologize if it's, I'm like an anchor man if it's not on the teleprompter, right?
We're gonna get you one. Put one more.
I'm Walton's new code enforcement agent. I've been on the job since last September. This is unfortunately my first meeting. I do apologize for that, but I have been working nonetheless. Council has, should have gotten a copy of the full list of updates that I emailed about a week and a half ago to Vaughn. The paper that I gave y'all tonight is our biggest things that are going on at the moment. 14 high school boards was finally demolished after it caught on fire September 21, I believe, 2000. They went to auction a couple times. Nobody wanted to buy it. I guess it wasn't worth fixing up. It defaulted to Freddie Mac. Thankfully, because of federal laws that changed, they became mandated to do something with it. So they originally told me 65 days. This was in October of last year. Obviously, just now got done. We have about $42,000 in fines, interest, and everything else that we are going to be invoicing them. Hopefully they pay. If not, then I'll be working with the city attorney and handling it other ways. 200 Old Nicholson, if anybody hasn't ever seen that house, basically you're seeking to see all the trusses, the roof is loaded on it. It's been on code enforcement's radar for a long time. We finally now just gotten down to it, hired a private investigator, tracked down the lady that owns it, basically showing our due diligence that we're trying to make contact. She has not reached back out to us, so the city can now, code enforcement arm can basically order demolition of the house.
So this is the one out by the Gaines property, correct?
Yeah, right before the Gaines house on the left.
Okay.
It is boarded up, that way people can't get in it. Last time I was out there, the backboard on the house was taken down. I spoke to Jerry, he was gonna talk about the fire department, one of them was gonna go out and board it back up because the kids were getting in and out of the basement. It's obviously a hazard as far as if it would catch on fire. The fire department will go out and take it and protect the surrounding homes and so forth. But it's well beyond trying to repair. So our next step on that will be tearing it down. 85 North Main, which is the old schoolhouse slash apartments. The fire department brought me in on that in January. They were having an issue with compliance on their fire inspections. So the city code enforcement got involved, just like I do with anything from tall grass to a building falling down. We start with conversations. We're trying to work with people. 99.9% of the stuff that I do is handled in the first phone call, conversation, letter. Unfortunately, we had to condemn this building. The property owner was given 60 days. This was after his original 23 days of notice. So he had 83 total days to start any sort of forward movement. Nothing happened, and so we had to evict all the tenants out of the building. They all knew it was coming. I talked to one of them. Her breathing has improved since she's left the building, so pretty obvious that people shouldn't have been living in there for multiple reasons. We have one lien filed against that already for $37,000. Another one I just signed today for about $9,000. That building is supposedly looking at being sold. If it does, we'll extend the same olive branch piece to the new owner and try to work with them as long as they have a plan in place. We don't necessarily care how long it takes, as long as forward movement happens. We want to see that building get fixed back up. That one's very important to the city. The hot button topic in the city is obviously the 19 North Main fence. That is Councilman Brown. You can thank him for interrupting the meeting he didn't attend. 19 North Main, the fence is a temporary construction fence. Me and the Mike County Padre are working on that. Cannot be there in violation of Walton code being chain link. However, we would rather work with them just like we work with anybody else. We figure if we push too hard, then they'll just get a building permit for a permanent fence, and it doesn't help anybody with the parking lot. We're trying to facilitate meetings, trying to act like a neutral party between
Bobby, on the old schoolhouse, do you know how many tenants were inside?
There were 4 units occupied out of 10, only because the other 6 were so that you could. I was able to gain access to one unoccupied one, and it was very soft.
Okay.
Walking through it, obviously, it's musty. I mean, that building was, I work out in the gym, and all that used to be connected to the gym was behind there, separate property, but that is early 1900s. So it's probably one of the good things about that building, that it is so old that it was built solid. It's probably rehabable. If it was a newer building left to deteriorate like that, it would probably have to be torn down. But it's got solid done. It just needs somebody to go in there and put more money than it's worth.
Gotcha.
Fix it back up.
You've got a question?
Is that considered a storage over there? You gotta bring it back to the storage value?
The old schoolhouse, I haven't checked into it, so I guess what it's on.
Isn't that on the national register though?
As far as I'm aware, it is. I haven't checked into like its official listing. It's in the historic downtown district, and because of its age and it was the schoolhouse, I would assume that it's on the historic society register.
You selling it?
I believe he's looking at selling it. Yeah. He's hard to get a hold of. But
I know, I'm trying to. More money.
And as far as your cruise arounds go, Bobby, I mean, you're gonna hit every street in town, obviously.
My plan now, because like I told the mayor, somebody would call me and complain for tall grass or broken down car on the driveway with flat tires, and I would go out and I would talk to that house. And then they would then be like, well, what about the other 3 houses? Do you want to make an official complaint? No, I'll do it. A lot of what I do now is because people don't want to talk to their neighbors. So they send me out to try to facilitate that. I look at every aspect. I start with PPA, look at homestead and disability exemptions, fact finding to figure out why maybe somebody ain't cutting the grass. But the whole thing now is you have to go street by street. There's a lot of places in Walton that need a little bit of attention. Some of it is people that need help with it. The one I found on work with the other day is an elderly lady. I'm handling that one personally. And then if we can try to, be able to, I also do this for a union, this is a cooperative thing. There's a veteran in union that has an issue with the grass. They always kind of just take care of that or somebody else takes care of it. But the idea now is to go street by street, have kind of these conversations, pass out business cards.
Is it something you'll make your rounds twice a year or something, like for the foreseeable future? Or
Once I get through the entire city, then it's going to be go back, because I mean, like the Brookwood Ashwood thing.
Okay.
Haley, now I have to go back and make sure all the people that said they were going to cut their grass or pump their tires up, and I go back and check on that house. If they don't do anything, then I send them an official letter. And then, once you make it through the entire city, then you go through this constantly. You don't
Gotcha.
just start back over.
Yep.
Once you get everything kind of handled, then maybe it'll be low time or nothing kind of happens.
Okay, sounds good.
We are fortunate as a city to have Bobby in any capacity. Many know that he served on council. And since he no longer lives in the city of Walton, he's able to serve in this capacity. So, Bobby, you're very thorough and you're appreciated. Thank you. I know that's your favorite phrase. You are appreciated. But may I ask, please, because you stated that on 19th North Main, that we're mediators in that situation, and you weren't at the caucus meeting, and the mayor and council had a discussion about that. Us, essentially, first and foremost, thank you for what you do, and I know that you're trying to bring peace amongst the business owners, but I believe the consensus was essentially that we really shouldn't mediate that situation. Am I stating facts?
I think you were coming at it more from don't jump in and pick a side. But I think we'd be all for mediating as a nonpartisan party.
And my idea was basically to offer the space, the seats, and be there, call it cops if needed. Not to offer opinions, because I've had to deal, when Kelly Palmer has found his little things that he is able to find other property owners that violated on the code, and I'm treating their violations the same way I'm treating his fence. I know about it, it's not a big deal, it's not a threat to public safety or health, so we'll deal with it.
No, the city holds no opinion
Yes, thank you.
on that. That is a civil matter, but yes.
Right, and there's no
We-
need for anyone to come to the table. It's just if you want to
Well-
participate in conversations, and it's,
Mediate was the wrong word, I apologize. We were just trying to provide the table.
okay, thank you. And again, thank you for what you do, Bobby. I appreciate it, because I know that it's not easy going out and I'm sure the majority of people you come across are kind, but there's always that situation where someone can be angry that you're there to tell them how to run their property. But again, thank you for what you do.
You'll recall if we have to, want to report somebody, for citation or something that keeps
I can
happening.
give you a card, you can call me directly, you can call City Hall, or there's an online code enforcement form. You can do that, either put all your information in, or you can do it anonymously. Doesn't matter, you put all your information in, or if you call, and give all of your information and all of that, it is available. Because I've had, unfortunately, when I've dealt with some people on a code enforcement issue and one subdivision, they wanted to know who called in on, and it's all public record, and then that guy ended up going and yelling at his neighbor. Major Mark's deputies had to go respond to it. Nothing bad happened, but that's,
Or can you keep it anonymous?
yes, you can. Yeah, you can submit it online anonymous, or you can just call in. Or you can call me and not tell me who, you just tell me what the problem is. Give me an address. I'll go look at it, there's a violation there, there is.
Well, I had a dog come jump over the fence. It's a little dog. And this fence it's real high. He jumped over that fence, came up on my deck, and bit my leg. Yeah.
That would be Boone
Animal
County
control.
Animal Control and the sheriff's department. Probably not, that would be Boone County Animal Control. We don't have any, our dog ordinances, for barking dog is one thing that I'm gonna be working with council, is language on that, because it's just antiquated and doesn't
The gateway.
Casey, that would be Boone County Animal Control, and then if you know the person that they use in insurance claims as well. I hear dog bites per paper.
Bobby.
Yeah, but enough of that. All right, moving on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Appreciate it, Terry.
No, I appreciate you.
All right. Council comments? Councilwoman Beach? Councilwoman Long?
Thank y'all for coming in.
Councilwoman Courtney?
Yes, thank you so much for the citizens just coming here, because you are the voice and we should represent your voice. So again, thank you for being here, and much appreciation to the city workers.
I'll just echo what Councilwoman Courtney said. It's nice to see everyone out here. Sometimes these meetings are really lonely, and having citizens here is always a pleasant perk of the responsibility. And just reiterate, Mr. Johnson, it's something, nobody here has made up their mind on anything except for the fire training facility itself is coming somewhere. But it's not something we take lightly, and it's something there's a whole lot more information we got to get, both from the parties and from the citizens. And just thank you for coming out and taking the time to get out here and put your voice heard. Yep. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening. I appreciate everybody.
Motion to adjourn. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Have a good night. There's your gift for you.